Radiohead are one of the biggest rock acts in the world. They've played gigs to tens of thousands of fans in multiple cities around the world. They've sold tens of millions of albums and influenced musicians over multiple generations. But everybody's got to start somewhere. This is the story of how Radiohead played their first Irish gig in a venue in Temple Bar in 1993 to a crowd of just 80 people. Welcome to Publin, a podcast about the culture, history and heritage of pubs at home and abroad. So let's set the context of the story of this episode. In 1991, Radiohead were signed to music label EMI. In 1993, they released their first album, Pablo Honey, to good reviews but mixed chart success. Most people who aren't fans of Radiohead would still likely have heard of their song Creep, which went on to be a big hit for the band. However, it was initially released as a single in September of 1992, but didn't really get any traction in the charts or in radio airplay. The band were lauded in music magazines like the NME as up-and-comers, so there was definitely a demand for the band to go on tour and promote their album, which launched in February of 1993 at smaller to mid-sized venues. Over the course of the year, the band played 149 concerts in the UK, mainland Europe, the USA, and 3 gigs in Ireland. The Dublin gig was in the Temple Bar area of the city, in a venue known as the Rock Garden. Those who might not be familiar with this bar and venue might now know it under its subsequent names, Eamon Doran's and the Old Storehouse. Eamon Doran's kept the venue alive as a destination for rock music, whereas the Old Storehouse fits in more with the tourist-oriented bars of the area, playing upbeat traditional music and offering food. My knowledge and the sources available for this gig are somewhat limited, but I have found a man who knows a good deal more about the venue, the Irish music scene of the time, and the Radiohead gig in particular. He knows about it because he booked them and worked the gig on the night. He also runs a Twitter account that shares memories, photos and audio of gigs from the venue. So let's hear from Jeff Brennan, who told me all about the gig and his memories of meeting the band and who turned up. So what were you doing? What were you doing in 1993 when Radiohead came to play in Temple Bar?
Yeah, I was working in the Rock Garden, so yeah, I was the entertainments guy, for the bar, I'd been there from 1991. I started working for the Rock Garden in 1991. It opened in September, October 91. I knew a fella in the north. He promoted gigs in the colleges, and he brought over Radiohead because they were promoting that album, and he needed somewhere for them to play in Dublin. So that's how they came to play in the Rock Garden, Jerry from the University of Ulster, I think he was. A really nice guy. So we did 3 gigs around Ireland. They played the University of Ulster, they played Dublin in the Rock Garden, and they played in Sir Henry's, I think. Because they were they were all over the music mags at the time. So everybody who had anything to do with a venue was doing their best to try and get them to come to Ireland. I think Jerry was just lucky because he had the college thing, because they were doing loads of colleges in England, so that was great. To get them, because they were the next big thing. Everyone knew what I thought it was going to be. It was all over NME. They were on big interviews and stuff, so I thought this was going to be a great gig for a lot of kudos, a lot of people be there. But as it turned out, I turned out to be the only man in the history of music promoters to lose money on a Radiohead gig, so the capacity of it was a purpose-built venue. It was absolutely a super venue. I know it's still there, but it's not used as a venue anymore, but it held 400 people. It was a straightforward, a bit like a smaller version of Vicar Street, Brilliant PA system, purpose-built lights, good load in, a nice big long bar in the room. Any part of the room you could see the stage, and the sound was really good in it. Yeah, it was a pity. It's a great shame that it didn't work out, It opened up when they finished they built it from scratch, It was an old, a warehouse building, on Crown Alley. And the builders took about 9 months, 10 months to convert it, So it opened up on late November. A house did a secret gig, and that was really, really good. I think it was on 2FM broadcasted that night. It was a great anticipation. Everyone was a great buzz about the place, this new venue. Yeah, so it opened up in 91 and it closed in late 94. So it wasn't around very long, but did a lot of good gigs. Like I spoke to the manager or their tour manager a little bit leading up to the gig. You know, he sent me over some posters and he asked me about like where they could stay, just the usual stuff. Like I had to organize some food for, do a meal for them that afternoon. That was it. Like they were very kind of quiet lads, like real scrawny little teenagers in a way, just, but they were very nice, very quiet fellas. They signed, I had a 12-inch, I just looked at it today. I dug it out today. Pop is Dead, I had that 12-inch and they signed it for, and Tom York wrote on the top, you rash fool for promoting us, So I looked back at it, I was laughing today, so I dug
78
out the
people.
figures because I have the old, when I left, the place, when it finished up, I brought the diaries with me. I looked on the date and the exact figures were 78 people paid 5 punts old money, 5 squids old money. And we had, I think it was 27 people on a guest list. So figured out that I lost 110 because I paid them €500, £500, So I lost over 100 quid. And then the posters and the meals and putting them up in a hotel. Well, hotel is, I'm losing that term lightly there. It was like a, Kinlay House youth hostel, I'm sure Tom has gone on to better things, to staying in fancier places than I put him up in. But yeah, I lost money on a radio gig, so yeah, there'll probably be a plaque on the wall in Crown Alley, This is where the man lost money on a Radiohead gig. I mean, they came back, I think it was a year later, and they were in the Olympia, and then within 3 or 4 years, I think it did Fairy House, 30,000 people or whatever, so yeah.
Did you do the door on the night then? Were you taking
I was there for a while, yeah. I remember of the 78 people that paid in, there was lots of guys from various bands that were playing around at the time. Like I remember seeing Power Dreams. Do you remember Power Dreams? They were kind of a big thing in the 90s. They were really young, really kind of guitar driven, really good band. Like lots of all the music press in England were mad about them, and they ended up signing, I think, with Polydor or something like. But they brought out some good stuff. As well, I remember seeing Something Happens were there that night, like another, at the time, they were kind of a big local guitar band. And one of the guy that wrote for Hot Press, I remember speaking to him on the night, George Byrne. He's since passed away, but he was mad about, any kind of guitar driven band. And he was bowled over by it. I remember speaking to him afterwards and he thought they were going to be, he was right. Like they were going to be the next big thing. Like they were great, What I remember most about the night is it coincided with, I got the elbow that day from my girlfriend at the time, They had a song called, I think it was called Thinking About You. It was kind of like a love song on that Pablo Honey album. I remember getting very mushy that night. I was listening to it. I was like, oh, no, this is terrible. I had to go outside for a while. Oh, stop. It was a bad day, I tell you. Oh, God.
How soon after the Rock Garden did it become Eamon Doran's? Do you know?
Changed over pretty quick. It was maybe in the space of about 2 months it became Eamon Doran's. What happened was people that ran the Rock Garden, they had a financial guy and he had a bit of a midlife crisis, buying leather trousers and Harley Davidsons and stuff, and he wasn't looking after the business and the financial side went down, So I mean the venue itself, and I mean it had a restaurant and a bar, and it had the venue downstairs, and after the restaurant would close at 10 o'clock at night, it would become a club, like a dance club. So that was kind of new for Dublin at the time, So 7 nights a week we try and have different dance DJs and different types of music. Monday nights you could have, I remember there was a reggae club, Juju, they were kind of well known around at the time. It was really busy, like a lot of people had come, like it was great, like from 11 until 2 in the morning, on a Monday, somewhere you could go and listen to reggae music and dance and stuff. And then we had another club on Friday, which was more kind of hardcore dance, and gave a lot of DJs, still fellas that are still probably going, like they've got a bit of arthritis, but they're still around at the moment. They started in there, so it had lots of angles, lots of different, facets to the whole place. The venue downstairs, afternoon gigs, we did new band nights, we did bands from England. We gave great support to lots of local acts, like bigger acts, Whipping Boy, Frames, Into Paradise, Blink, loads of Pet Lamb, loads of Roller Skate Skinny, loads of really, it was a good time for music in Dublin. So lots of great bands around. I'm proud of having my involvement in the Rock Garden. There's a lot of hard work for a young. I was only a young fella, but a lot of good bands, a lot of good times down there. And the staff, the people that worked there were really. It was a good place to work.
Running the Twitter account about the Rock Garden, has that brought people out of the woodwork that you wouldn't have heard from for a while, or thought about bands, or listened to bands that you wouldn't have heard?
I just threw a few things up on Twitter. It's a while ago now, because I when you find things like I found a lot of old photographs, old 12 inches and copies of singles and stuff. They were signed. And so I just thought of a way to connect with people from the old days, like when people were going to gigs. And it did. There's lots of people. I got messages from fellas in Australia. I used to go to the gigs and all sorts of people. Like, so it was great. Like, nice memories, you know? And it's great to go back and listen to some of those old songs, some of the bands, like, because there's still a lot of the music is still relevant today. Like, it's still really good. Like, I mean, you can see what was it 2 years ago? The Whipping Boys brought out the re-released album, like, and it sounds as good today as it did in 19 whatever it was, 93 or 94 or whatever. Like,
Do you still have an involvement in music scene in
no,
Dublin these days?
no, 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 no. Well past that now. But the nearest I came, I was helping my nephew's band for a while, but they gave me the push, get rid of that granddad. I was interfering, and I was like, no, you have to get rid of him. So yeah, no, I dropped them to their rehearsals the odd time. That's about as much involvement I have now.
Was that the last time you saw Radiohead live, or did you go and see them any other of the
I went to see
dozen?
them. Yeah, I went to see them in the big gig, the outdoor gig in Fairy House, I think it was, and it rained the whole night. So yeah, it was a terrible gig. And I saw them in the Point as well, I think. And again, like I was like, it just depressed me because there's so many people there, and I could barely get 78 people to pay a fiver.
I had written a short article about the gig in 2020, and a few people picked up on it on Twitter who had been at the gig and shared a few short memories about it. Ray Harman, a member of the aforementioned band Something Happens, said that apparently Radiohead were aware that the members of Something Happens are at the gig, and that had made Radiohead nervous. Another commenter said the crowd was essentially made up of every member of every guitar band in Dublin from the time. Jerry Fahey on Twitter said, every song had rhythm guitar, lead guitar, and at least one of O'Brien or Greenwood playing just sounds, effect-laden stuff, almost like keyboards. To which Ray Harman replied, that struck me too. I'd never heard keyboard or effect guitars like that live. And also, they look like Gollum. I think it would be fair to say that Jeff has his place in the footnotes of Irish music history for his role in putting together Radiohead's first ever gig in Ireland, and credit to him for his efforts in publicising the Rock Garden venue and its short-lived but large impact on the Irish music scene. We'll have a look at getting that plaque put up on the side of the old storehouse. Here, on the 14th of May, 1993, a man, Jeff Brennan, lost money on a Radiohead gig and was dumped by his girlfriend. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Publin Podcast. If you'd like to hear more about the Rock Garden, you can follow Jeff on Twitter at rock_Dublin. Can you think of any other big bands who came to play Dublin for the first time before going on to be huge? I recall hearing that Nirvana played in a bar venue in Dunleary, so there might be a few more episodes in those topics. If you've just listened to the podcast for the first time and you enjoyed the listen, I have a reasonable back catalogue of episodes to go back over. That's it for another week, but you'll be hearing from me again very soon. Thanks again for listening, and as always, Sláinte.